This is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guests today are from Riverside Theatre, cranking up its annual summer season, artistic director Adam Wright. Adam, welcome. Nice to see you.
Hi, great to be here.
And Elliott Bales, who portrays Falstaff in the upcoming production of Henry IV, Part 1. Elliott, you're a Cedar Rapids native, but you've been out seeking your fortune and haven't been on a Cedar Rapids area stage for a long time.
That's true. I graduated in 1979 from Cedar Rapids, Washington, so go Warriors, and ultimately ended up at the National War College, which was also the Warriors. So it was a nice bookend to that experience. And spent 26 years in the Army, retired, went back to the theater, and here we are today.
Okay, and based out of Washington,
Arlington,
D.C.?
Virginia, Washington, D.C. area.
Okay, yeah, I think not too surprising, I guess, that you might hang around that neck of the woods.
Well, I like to stay on the one side of the river so that all of the people that are over there, all those politicians, I can keep an eye on them, but I'm not in amongst them. That's the way I like to keep it.
Well, for those who aren't familiar with the summer series at Riverside Theatre, Adam, is this your first go-around with?
This is my first go-round.
Okay, but the Shakespeare Festival and Classics have been going on for a long time, and of course you inherited a cool facility in City Park.
I love it. It's actually one of the reasons I came to Riverside was that there's this great, replica of the globe in the middle of Lower City Park, and starting last year we made it free. So we used to do Shakespeare all summer and have it be a ticketed event, but with the weather being as crazy as it's been the last several years, we decided to make it free, but also as a chance to expand our mission and to really make theater as accessible as it can be to all residents of the community, regardless of income. And people with families can bring their kids, and it just is a great way to give back to the community. And it's really energized our patrons, and it's been great. It's not free for us, of course, but we've had an amazing support from donors and sponsors that have made it possible. And so Free Shakespeare is ramping up this Friday.
All right, and the play is Henry IV, Part 1. Okay, help me out. My knowledge of the history plays can be a little sketchy.
This is only the second history play that Riverside's ever done. We did Richard III about 10 years ago. And the histories are great because they're a mixture of action and comedy and tragedy, and there's kind of all the elements that make theater great all in this one world. And in this case, it's about a king, Henry IV, who usurped the throne from Richard II. And the problem with usurping the throne is all of a sudden no one knows what a king means anymore. Because if a king is not ordained by God, then anyone can be king, right?
And we can't have that.
No, gosh, no. That leads to democracy. And the king has a son, Hal, who's a ne'er-do-well. And so not only is the king dealing with different rebel factions, but also has this child, Hal, in our case played by Hahn, who is hanging out with some dude named Falstaff and carousing all night. And so the king is worried that his heir is not up to the task.
And Elliott, Falstaff, one of the all-time great characters in all of theater, appears in how many plays does he appear in?
3. Henry IV, Part 1 and 2, and then Merry Wives of Windsor.
Okay. And his death gets mentioned in Henry V. So
right. Okay. So parts of 4. Tell me about. Have you played Falstaff before?
I haven't, but it's total typecasting, spending up all night carousing and chasing on. No, this is my first time with Falstaff.
Falstaff is generally he's the partier. He's the older, maybe kind of slightly lecherous, comedic relief character who really is the model for all of those characters in the 400 years since.
Right, and before. I mean, Shakespeare didn't invent that character. It came out of other Renaissance traditions as well. So it's been around even longer than that.
So how do you approach becoming this archetypal character?
I think the most important part about what Falstaff is he's just one of the 3 voices in the play that's speaking to Hal. On the one side, it is all of those things you mentioned. It's the dissipated, debauched side of what we tend to look at as the common man or the common man's life. But it's also the core values of hard work. And he's been somewhere before. He's a fallen knight. You don't get to be a knight by hereditary means. You you earn that title through brave deeds and things like that. So that now he's less than he was is more significant because he was once better. But there's a message in him that Hal is hearing about. Don't leave the common people behind. Don't forget, this is the people who do the working and the living and the dying. For you are the king. You will be the king or the queen in this case because of the hard work of these people that are your subjects. And so that's the voice that he represents, that Hal has to separate what's not good and what's not positive and what's not helpful from the core values that he represents. So that's been the fun part of exploring that character. And that relationship is more important than just the character.
Adam, because the Shakespeare Festival takes place in a replica of the Globe Theater, it can be, as a director, you really have to balance that. Part of you wants to, of course, be very traditional and give people that Elizabethan English experience when they come in. But, of course, you also have to change and update and do things differently. We already mentioned that your Prince Hal is going to be played by a woman, so that's a departure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's always important with theater to make it present. Shakespeare made it present. I mean, he wasn't writing Julius Caesar to be a historically accurate portrayal of Rome. He was writing Julius Caesar for Elizabethan audiences. And part of why his plays have survived so long is because they lend themselves to reinterpretation. For us, I mean, a lot of the play is about what becomes a leader. How do we promote change? And I thought it was important to have Hal represent the kind of change that's happening now in the world, which is that change doesn't look the same as it did 50 years ago or 500 years ago, and a leader can be whatever gender they are, and also in our case too, we're setting it in circa World War I. And that felt right in so many ways because it was this period in time where chivalry was kind of in its last gasps, where these warring families were still in control, but their kind of infighting was leading to lots of pain for the common person. And Falstaff has these great speeches about war and what honor means. And I feel like World War I was the moment where a lot of civilizations started to truly question why we're doing this whole thing in the first place and what honor is on the battlefield. And it just felt right, and it kind of gave us as a cast and as a production, I think, an into this world, because at least we can think about that time period and look at photographs and start to imagine, versus it's hard for me to imagine what everyday life was like in Renaissance England. So it's important to keep turning the soil with any theater, but particularly Shakespeare, and that's why he survived so long and still speaks to us now.
Talking with Adam and Elliott about Henry IV Part 1, coming up, opening June 14th, Riverside Theatre's Shakespeare Festival. Before we go, Adam, just really quickly, I know you've got a Gilbert Street production that is going to be unique later on in the summer, too.
So it's a ticketed event at Gilbert Street, opening July 5th. We're doing Men on Boats by Jacqueline Backhouse, directed by Angie Tombson, and who's the artistic director of Cedar Rapids. And it's a wonderful kind of re-exploration of these explorers who mapped out the Colorado River and its canyons. These were, of course, 10 male explorers, and part of what makes this play so interesting is it's looking at history through a new lens. So it's all these male explorers played by people who are not that. And so it's a cast of 9 women and one gender nonconforming individual, and it's just a great way to get an in to history and to say that the spirit of adventure and the spirit of destiny can be played by anybody. And it's an exciting play that has 10 of the corridor's best actors in it. So I'm really thrilled to have that play as kind of a counterpoint to Henry IV Part 1.
So, and when does that open?
July 5th and runs through the 28th.
Okay, well, great opportunity to see several different shows on the Riverside stages this summer. How long, so you open the 14th for King Henry IV, and that runs 2 weekends? 2 weeks?
Exactly. So we open this Friday and run through Sunday the 23rd. Performances are at 7:30 p.m. with a green show directed and written by Chris Okishi at an hour before curtain time each night, which is a fun kind of retelling of the story, very much like in the complete works of William Shakespeare tradition. And it's kind of a fun entry to the play proper, which starts at 7:30.
Gives you a little fun synopsis to help follow.
Uh-huh. And there's going to be food trucks. There's going to be refreshments there. It's a great way to get out of your homes and to see great theater.
It's one of my favorite events every summer. So glad to have it starting up again. Glad that it's free. And that's exciting. Grateful to you and all the sponsors who've made that happen. And Elliott, welcome back to the Corridor. Great to have you here, and looking forward to Falstaff in our version of the Old Globe Theater.
Excited to be here. You have a great group of artists here in the Corridor, and just to get to play with them is a lot of fun.
Information, I would say information and tickets, but not needed for the Shakespeare show.
Right.
But if people want to know more, they want to get curtain times or find out more about the Green Show and things like that, they can visit your website, which is
www.riversidetheater.org, and it's theater with an R-E.
All right, gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Great, thanks for having us.
You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio most Thursdays and Fridays at 10:20, the occasional Tuesday, too, for that matter. Or you can download and watch the podcast online or using your favorite podcast app at kcck.org/culture. I'm Dennis Green.